Looks like we got some of the early crew, Angela.
Yeah, we do. I let them know we'd be starting in about 4 more minutes.
Karen, Glenn, great to see you. Betsy. Who all do we have here? Jacqueline, Pat. So great to see all of you. And of course, Team PF, Juliana, Angela. So Angela, as we are in this 2-minute preliminary period, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Are you okay with that? What's the feature or function of momentum that you like the most?
Really? Oh, that's a hard one. I kind of feel like with the way my life has been lately, defer is nice. What do I like the most though? Honestly, this is pretty broad, but I really like and it's not a specific feature necessarily so much, but I really like, for lack of better words, the guardrails that it gives me. So that when I'm in there, I know like this is the thing. This is what I'm focusing on, and I don't drift off into other musings.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
I figured you were going to say sparkly.
Well, that used to be. I mean, I still love sparkly. Let's be clear. But now that we've got more and more features rolling out, and since we actually launched, and there's even more, there are other things now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Project Defer is great. I think I was working with one of our teammates. I don't think it was Juliana, it may have been Nicole, and for the team we use Asana for for team project management, and we were needing to bump. Will someone deactivate the waiting room thing and just let folks come on in? Anyways, we were wanting to defer a product, and I kept trying to find it in Asana. It's like, where do we do this in Asana? And you couldn't do it in Asana. And so I was like super mad about it, right? And I was like, oh, wrong tool. Like, why doesn't every tool have this? So we had to do the normal thing of deferring the top level project and then all the little tasks that went with it. I was like, okay, that's my jam, because we overcommit. Even when you make the tools that help you not overcommit. Alrighty. So I've had a few people weigh in on this one. So Pat said blocking out chunks in the weekly view is their favorite feature or function. Okay. So Angela, we are, I think, at time.
We are right at time. All right. Pardon me. I am going to go ahead and get us officially started here. It is Thursday, June 30th, and we are here for another one of our backer webinars. And today specifically, we're going to show you a couple of things. I have some questions that I want to ask Charlie based on some of the questions and things that have been coming in. And then we also, we're going to have Charlie talking about kind of some of the behind the scenes of Momentum and how it's been developed, why we did things a certain way, but we're also going to be leaving plenty of time for Q&A as well. Pardon me, I wanted to introduce a few of our PF teammates here as we're starting. Charlie, you all probably already know, and he has said hello and got us started. Juliana happens to be up here in my left-hand corner. I'm not sure where she is for you all, but she is going to be here helping to support us today in the chat, in other various ways. I've got Mariah here, who is also going to be helping with links, catching feedback, questions, comments, all those things that you might need help and support with as well. And Megan as well is part of our PF family. And she is here listening for how we can make the teaching and training and onboarding materials from Momentum even better and more robust. So that's who from the team is here today to help and support. And Juliana, Megan, and Mariah specifically can really be taking your questions as they come in, helping to guide you in different ways as Charlie and I stay a little more focused on talking with you all and sharing some things with you all as we're here today. Charlie, before I dive right on in, anything else you'd like to say here at the top?
Well, most of this is going to be the makings of momentum, why we're doing what we're doing and where we're going. Obviously, if you have some real big issues that you want to bring to our attention in the sense of like questions that you have around how to use it, so on and so forth, please do ask us. And I know Angela's about to roll us into this, but I wanted to say, first off, thank you to all of you all who joined us way early and have been growing this with us from the very beginning. Like y'all, I was doing a retrospective of where we started in, I think, February when we started introducing folks, and it was just the weekly view in February. Y'all remember that? Who remembers that? And just how much we've actually added into it. And it's been wonderful to have you all with us on the journey. Obviously, we can't do this without you, and we don't want to do it without you. Even if, we could go out and get investor money, which we've had investors interest, but we we want to stay focused on this and focused on you. And we know that we can stay focused on you and making momentum work for you if we stay focused the way we are. So thanks for that. And I'll be honest, team, I've eaten a lot of crow this year about all the things that I see in other applications, like, why isn't that so dumb? And it seems easy to fix. And then something will come up in momentum and I'll be like, oh, it turns out that's harder to fix than you think. And so I've been eating a whole lot of crow this year about some of those things. And so thanks for working with us. We have Google Cal integration either rolled out today for some of you or about to roll out here real soon. And so I'm hella excited about it. And I also know, because I've been working with the dev team and Steve, I also know it's going to introduce more things that y'all going to come after us with pitchforks about. But that's what we are here for, to make this thing better and to get it going. So really excited. Thank you for joining us today. But thanks for being a part of the momentum journey with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I am going to be hoping that my voice holds out for this. It's kind of been in and out a little bit lately. So we just wanted to start with two quick things that we wanted to show all of you to make sure that you knew that they are up on the Momentum site in case you haven't seen them yet. And I'm going to just share my screen here momentarily so that you can see what I'm talking about. All right. So here we have our thank you page up now. In case you haven't had a chance to see it yet, this is just our wall of backers, our wall of fame, our wall of thank you. Everyone who said that they were up for having their name included, we have put you on here and we greatly appreciate it. So feel free to take a look on through there if you would like to. We had more than 400, I think close to almost up to 500 after Backer Kit and whatnot, people who supported us in the very beginning. So thank you all so much. If for some reason you see your name on here, but we messed it up, let us know. You can definitely send a message to Mariah. You can DM her, or you can send it to support, and we will make sure that it's edited. But hopefully we've got all the names up here correctly. And then the other thing we wanted to show you, just in case you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, it's about a 2.5 minute video. But we did want to show you the newest video on momentum and kind of the key features of momentum here.
Angela, pause real quick.
Yes.
You're sharing your full desktop and not just your browser. So,
oh, thank you. Let's see. Where do I go? This is why I don't usually do these things. Okay, so Safari, perfect. Is that better?
I can't see it yet. Yes, that's better. Make it full screen, please.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
We can't hear it.
So Angela, when you share, there's a tick box at the bottom that says share sound. When you see that grid of desktop and different windows down at the bottom, there's a share sound checkbox that needs to be checked.
Yes, Kaylin, thank you. This is actually kind of probably an effort in restraint for our team right now, because it's like Angela never gets to do.
I was like, what? How are we here?
Why is Angela doing
Why?
this?
No.
Because I know, but thank you. We're gonna start over here.
Back to the beginning.
All right. So thanks for giving us a few minutes there just to kind of share some of the newer things up on the page. And I have to say, Charlie, as I was watching that, and it reminded me, you asked me a minute ago, like what my favorite feature is. And I was like, oh yeah, we haven't always had drag and drop. That actually is probably like when that update came out, I was like, now I can actually use our product. All right. So anyway, I was using it before that, but actually having that capability, it was really good. So that's definitely one of the things I've been super excited about. So we're going to keep on moving through here. Again, thank you all for backing. We so appreciate it. I'm really glad that we get a chance to be here today with Charlie so that we can hear a little bit about what has gone into momentum, some of the decisions that were made, the methodologies, things like that. And then also to give you all some time for Q&A with Charlie as well. All right. Remember too that you can continue to drop your questions, feedback, anything like that over in the chat. And Mariah and Juliana will be doing a good job of keeping up with those. And when we get to Q&A, letting us know what we have to talk about. All right. So, Charlie, I think one of the places I'd like to start is maybe with just having you talk about kind of the how and why of some of the choices that we've made around momentum. As you've said before, it's a very opinionated app.
Yeah.
And those opinions come from, the over a decade of using this methodology to help creatives and other folks really get their stuff done. And I'm wondering if there might be some highlights that you think might be fun to know a little more about the reasoning behind them, maybe.
Yeah, well, it turns out all software, everything a human designs is opinionated. So let's start there, right? Some are more opinionated than others, and we, are on that very opinionated in the sense of where there's a methodology, there's a principle behind what we're doing that makes momentum different and sometimes frustrating. I will acknowledge that, right? Even as it grows, there will be some inherent frustrations that come with it. But there are a few things that we baked into it. One is we're trying the best we can to not give you a digital black hole for all your stuff, to like having too many projects, so on and so forth. So that's where in previous versions we've now changed it a little bit, but that's where there's like really a visual presentation, and there's going to be more nudges when we start seeing 8-9 projects on a day or a week. Momentum is going to do a job of nudging you and be like, hey, so we've learned that 5 or so is about right for most people. You sure about 9 today? Right? Obviously, you can override that, but I think we don't get enough of those type of nudges from a lot of the tools that we use. A major opinionated that's baked all the way through it is time horizons. This is one of those things where it seems obvious that we should be able to have a clear place where we can see what we're working on at the monthly view, and then see sort of the level of granularity that we need to. But it's one of those things that's actually been surprisingly difficult, a surprisingly difficult challenge to solve. That's why not a lot of other tools are going after it in the way that we're going after it. So really helping people think, okay, what time horizon do I operate best in? And really anchoring around that. So I think that's a very opinionated place where we are, where we do. Another place is that by default, you don't delete things in the sense where you either archive it and it goes where it is. But what we've noticed with so many tools, and I've learned this from coaching, is when you actually, because I'm that type of coach that will get hyper tactical with my clients. And I'm like, okay, we're talking very theoretically about everything you need to do. Let's just open your to-do list. Let's see what it is. And then they're like, well, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not sure if I want to do this, but I don't want to put another date on it, and I don't want to delete it. So it just lives there. And so there's so much friction around getting something out of your way that you don't. But then you look at a list and your brain has to look through 17 things to find the 5 that actually matter. And that's just additional cognitive load that you don't need to. So with momentum, we are trying to make it so that you can easily archive something or defer something in a few clicks. That's one of the things that we're focusing on, is how can we make it such that in 2 or 3 fairly intuitive clicks, you can make decisions and move on with your day. And so not deleting things by default. I wish I was the first person that thought about it, but actually Gmail, we've been doing this for years. If you use Gmail, there was a big switch back in the old days from the folder delete way of thinking about, like the Microsoft Outlook way, and the Gmail way, which is you just archive things indefinitely. You don't actually trash things. But one of the things that shifted in that is realizing that, wait a second, there's a lot of cognitive friction when it comes to deleting things that may not be necessary. Last thing that I'll say, and it was shown up in the video, is that we want momentum to help people switch from planning mode to driving mode pretty quickly. Like, we want to give you that space where you can do your big picture planning and visioning and figuring stuff out. But then very quickly, whether it's, shrinking your screen, like I figured this out. Like I think it was me and Julianne. I was like, I didn't know we could do that. Right. I find out stuff all the time, but like whether you're in that big picture planning mode and then just jumping into the app and just being able to flip over to dashboard, just follow along and get out of the puzzle making, plan making that sometimes is, let's face it, in the way of doing the actual work. So yeah, most of the apps in our space are basically databases with a visual layer on top. And the question they've been asking is, how do we make it easy for people to capture information and display that information back to them? Very basic sort of thing. We're approaching it differently and saying, okay, how do we build the app so that it is much more of that information processing system that does a lot of that, so you can step back in the executive function and do that very human thing that only you can do, but then makes it super easy for the app to sort of intuit what you're trying to do. So as we continue to grow, like we want to do things like build in some machine learning so that, well, there's a lot of things there, but machine learning meaning like that the app will start to keep up with your streaks and your rhythms. And so, when Kaylin's like, I'm going to do 18 things this week, Momentum is going to be like, hey, Kaylin, so on average, you complete about 5 things. So what's different this week? Are you sure? Right? Or just, commenting and saying, hey, Jacqueline, like for the last few weeks in a row, you've completed about 60% of your tasks. So you're overcommitting by about 40% or so. Do you need to shift something? And just getting better about doing those types of things. The other thing we want to do when we start talking about, creating the function so that you can share your plans is so that anytime you have like a meeting and it's like meeting with Glenn, that Momentum is smart enough to understand that meeting with something means that when you share your plan, you like don't share who it's with. Right. So Glenn can share his entire weekly plan, but not share who he's meeting with. And that way he still maintains privacy of those conversations in the context, but people can see how booked he might be or what his plan looks like and can be good partners on that. So at its core, we're not designing like what's the easy way to do this or what what can we adapt humans to do, as much as we can say, okay, here's what we know humans do. Right. We have positive psychology in the background. We have behavioral economics. We have best of productivity principles. Based upon what humans do, how can we make them make better, more conscious choices that help them thrive and be kinder to themselves and those around them? That's really what Momentum is about. Okay.
Thanks. I love that. One of the things you kind of brought up and you spoke to just a little bit are some of our kind of future plans and ideas for new features for Momentum. And I know we kind of have a like have to have list, a like great to have list, and a like, oh, someday maybe kind of list. I'm curious if you might be able to talk to us a little bit about what you see coming up here in the next quarter to 3 quarters with regards to some of the like key updates for Momentum.
Okay. Well, right on the doorstep, there's an email. I think we're having some team dancing around getting out the door to going to backers or going to folks that is really about Google Cal coming out next week or maybe the week after. We're danger close, military term. It's really, really close. It's right on us, right? And so Google Cal integration. Now, a few things. Why not all the calendars? Turns out Apple really is difficult to be an ecosystem partner with. They make it really hard to do some of that because partially is they want you to lock in and use all of their tools. And so they introduce enough friction. Google is the exact opposite. Google wants you to build on their sort of thing, and they're trying to eat into Amazon and Apple. So we got Google Cal first because it's one of the ones that we can do fastest, and based upon what we're seeing from some of our user base, it's the most popular of the tools that people are using. So it's the thing we can get done fastest and quickest. We are working on we are working on Apple, we are working on Outlook and all the other calendars. We're just starting where we can as quick as we can. It might sound backwards that we're focusing on recurring events after Google Cal, but looking at how so many people use their calendars for recurring events and recurring appointments, we want to get Google Cal sorted so that we can see what lift does momentum need to do that doesn't conflict with how people are actually already using their calendar. So you can sort of look at it. We get that calendar integration locked in, we get the recurring events locked in, and then a major feature for a lot of folks is actually starting to have a I'm not going to call it a planner view, or I'm not going to call it a certain type of view, but let's call it a free-form space for you to plan your projects in the app itself. And then Momentum will help you go ahead and sequence those out, right? So it's really replacing what on the PF side is the individual project planner, so that you can start with the screen that's just like, what's your project, and you list out all the chunks. And then Momentum will help you do what Momentum does best, right? So that's coming pretty quickly, and we know that's a major feature we need to get unlocked and on deck. Looking a little bit further out, I've already alluded to being able to share your plans with other people. We currently do not have a vision that Momentum is going to move like Momentum Teams or go that sort of route, as opposed to making it easier to stay focused on you, but to share it with people who you might want to be as part of your success pack, and so on and so forth. So in the next few months, you'll see at least that, but probably some other ways for you to share your plans, your wins of the week, the streaks that you're on, so on and so forth. Oh, streaks, that's a given, right? Streaks, how frequently or how much you're able to do it. And I imagine streaks are going to be one of two ways, and the developer is going to hate one of the ways versus the other. The easy way is just that it just keeps up with how much you completed all the tasks, right? So like, what's your basic numerical streak? The more complicated one is it gives you an idea of your rate of completion of things. So not just that you completed things, but like, you got a streak of completing 90% of the things that you set out to do. So that's kind of like your benchmark to go against. That's a little bit harder to program, but we're looking at that sort of scenario. And what we want to do with streaks, in case you've ever used this with other tools, sometimes streaks themselves can be stressful, because then you don't want to break your streak, but life happens, right? And so unfortunately, some of us get bit by toxic productivity, and we're like, well, damn my self-care, I'm going to keep my streak. And we don't want to encourage that, right? At the same time, streaks can be inherently motivating. Okay, so those are some of the features coming down the pipe. Mariah would be able to say if there's something else that I'm missing off the top of my head. Mariah does a lot of this with Steve, a lot of the sort of conversations, and Mariah is our source of truth when we start thinking about what's needed most as far as content, or what's needed most as far as new features to really get things served. Now, while it's not a feature of the app itself, a support resource that we're going to be sharing and that we want you to be paying more attention to is we're actually going to be converting the Hello Momentum website to be much more of a documentation hub and a getting started hub. So like, if you have any questions, you can find it there pretty easily. And you're not sort of swimming on your own. Another minor feature is making it easy to find the website from the actual app. And so just things like that are either essential or quality of life things. Yeah. So
thank you. Holy having now been through developing an app, I am remembering why we said no for so long. I'm really glad we did it. I'm still so glad that we did it. And I'm so excited about all the updates coming out. And it's a huge project.
What I
Fun
said,
now.
what I've told people for years when they've asked, because we're building momentum because the demand for the app was so high that at a certain point we're like, why do we keep saying no? Like, what's really underneath that? But what I tell people when they start thinking about apping their intellectual property or apping their product, I was like, that's a whole separate business that you're creating. It's not necessarily like a book sort of scenario or like you add coaching on top of something else. You end up creating an entirely different business that just operates and feels differently. And you need to think about, well, you got to have, well, all the things that we now expect software to be. And we're, I don't know how many people, well, here's what I'll say. We are living in a really good, solid, golden age of software, right? Between low code, no code, integrations, stuff like what we're doing. There is such a robust ecosystem of software and tools. And the expectations we have of software are really, really high at this point, right? Even over the last 3 years, our expectations have increased significantly. So yeah, we're excited to be on this journey. I'm so glad we're doing it.
Me too.
And we are building a website the way we build websites from scratch. We're building an app from scratch. We're building community success and support from scratch. And yeah, it's fun.
It is. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. All right. Let's see. I'm wondering, are there any, besides what we've already talked about, Charlie or Mariah, any other updates that have come out just in the last like few weeks to month or so that people might not know about, other than what we've already touched on?
I think that Charlie gave a pretty good synopsis on what we got going on. Do need to mention the quarterly planning view if you want to hop on that though.
Yeah, that's coming out to do. When did or does that come out, Mariah? It's upcoming in the works. That's right.
That's upcoming, so like next month or month after.
Okay. Why you see me sort of like where it's at is because I kind of know what's on our staging side of things, so I know what's in the works there versus what's public, and sometimes I get I forget which one is which. So thanks for that, Mariah.
Yeah, there are a lot of features in progress. All right. Well, I kind of feel like it is, a really good place now to dive into some Q&A. As we're kind of queuing up that questions, you can feel free to drop your questions here in the chat. And Juliana is going to help us with keeping up with those and getting as many questions answered as we can. And I did want to also remind you that Mariah is your best go-to person for any questions or concerns about the app. She dropped her information in the chat earlier, and we'll have her do it again here in just a minute. So you can always feel free to email her and reach out when you have questions. And as Charlie mentioned, we're working diligently on our onboarding training, teaching materials, so that more and more you're going to be able to get the questions you have answered by just going directly to the site. So, but in the meantime, and always, we're happy to answer questions. Charlie, anything else that you'd like to share about either the behind the scenes, the why we made the planners into an app, anything like that before we dive into the Q&A? We're about halfway at our halfway point here.
Yeah, I've covered most of it. Like it's been a very cool effort to see these things turn into something that's on your phone and computer. These things being, this is the momentum planner card, the weekly and the daily, and then we have the yearly version. And I think the reason we decided to do it is we had enough people that were scratching and sending emails and wondering that it just made sense to do. In some other podcast interviews about it, I tell people I'm a very reluctant software developer, in the sense where when I look at the ways we have become more distracted, more tied to devices, less capable of doing some of the things, I worry to the degree of, not to the point of saying that we're going to a place of harm, but for the longest time, and when we look at the research, we know that thinking and planning on paper actually is better for our brains, and we tend to do better thinking on that side of things. And so it's always been like, do we want to go there? And the reality is, going forward, we're going to live in a hybrid world. Like, we're not going to be paper people, or we're not going to be digital people. We're going to live in a hybrid world. So at a certain point, I got to the point where I was like, well, I guess if we're going to be living in a hybrid world, it's good to have teams that are actually cognizant and conscious about some of the limitations of technology and the benefits of it in paper. In other words, doing some of this work, so that we get a robust ecosystem that are really solving some of these challenges. So yeah, that's why we did it. And also, we had taken the digital momentum planner, which is based off of the PDF. We had taken it as far as it can go before it just made any sense anymore. Like, we have been building some of these tools on PDF technology for the last 10 years. And if you've ever tried that, you know how limited that is. So we were stuck in this sort of weird place of being sort of digital, but not really. And we needed to sort of fish or cut bait on that one. So we decided to fish.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. All right. So feel free, you can either raise your hand if you'd like to, or just wave at us, or drop your questions over here in the chat, and we'll dive right on into them. Juliana, do we have anyone up first who has a specific question?
Okay.
Glenn seems to have a couple questions.
Okay.
Yeah, let's jump on this, Glenn.
Thank you, Juliana.
Well, it's more, I've just put in a chat room. It's a bit of a classic dilemma, I guess. I am a software developer, so I feel your pain, because my problem is my clients. Now, is the fact that their expectations of what can be achieved may not actually be even possible or even be practical. Problem is, because I have a small business, I have a couple of developers working for me, but primarily I've got 25 or so apps out there for clients. And at any one time, I might be working on 8 or 9 of them. So some of them I'll be doing some big pieces of work, some development work, and others it will just be bug fixing or a few minor bits and pieces. And I have to use, I use ClickUp to collaborate with those clients. So we micromanage what needs to be done on each project within ClickUp, and every little thing that needs to be done puts on there. My problem is I'm trying to use Momentum to simplify my day, so that I can sort of chunk it down into bite-sized chunks that I can get on with. But when you're dealing with 8 or 9, because my mindset is I have 8 or 9 projects I'm working on, but that's not a project in the construct of Momentum, and I can't decide or get my head around how to pass that down. I mean, I've tried to do 5 projects where I have project development, client support, admin work, retainer work, training and development, and then try and fit it into there. But I just can't seem to get that structure settled in my mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Well, I think there's some creative accounting that we can do, Glenn, to make some of this work. So part of what I suspect is happening is you have some of your work that is maintenance or routine sort of stuff that you're doing for some of your clients, and then you have others that where you're in a heavy architect phase.
I try and restrict how much true development work I'm actually doing, because you can't do it all.
Yeah, you can't do it all. So I think when you think about the heavy development work that you do, it's sort of that heavy architectural work that you do. How many clients say this in July are on your desktop that you're actively working on and doing a lot of really good work on?
3 to 4.
Okay. So from a work perspective, it's like you've got, those might be the 3 to 4 that actually are projects that you're working on and that you're parsing, and you're starting to think of milestones that you're coding against on those projects.
Correct. Yeah.
And so one way you can account for that is, you can say like, complete your 3 primary, dev projects this month, or you can have it arced that way. And then just when you do like your weekly vision and you see that sort of goal in there, you're like, okay, which are the milestones of these products am I working on this week? And you can sort of chunk it that way, right? Then you might have some of those other ways of thinking about, like business development might be a max, like you probably have some goals around that, infrastructure, right? Hiring, things like that. And those might be some of those macro projects that at the monthly and quarterly view do enough work of placeholding that at the weekly view, I think is going to be much more of where you're going to need more granularity. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where, if I were working with you in that way, and y'all know as customers, or maybe you don't know, all customers and PFA folks always end up clients. So I just treat you like your clients in that way. So where I would say, Glenn, I would be working with you like, okay, this weekly deck is where we really need to get things wrapped on, assuming we have the right monthly goals and projects. How are you making the weeks build to the month? And that's where I would be really pushing. It's like, Lindy, are you really building 8 projects this week? Or working on 8 things this week? Or are you working on 3? Or like, what's that going on there? Because I think, well, what I didn't mention is earlier when Angela asked what's coming down the pipe in a few months, time blocking and incorporating time blocking into momentum, I think is going to be a really big thing. I think there are development or coding blocks that you have a very few amount of, that is just where we would want to focus on you with. And so say, okay, Glenn, there's at most, I'm guessing 10 of those coding blocks a week, focus blocks a week at most. That's probably a good week. Those have to be divided across 3 of your client projects. How are you going to do that and when?
Yeah, I mean, psychologically, it's keeping all my clients happy with them seeing defined progress. Yeah,
defined progress. And so that's where I would use like mini OKRs for you, in the sense of every week you got a few milestones or functions that you're trying to get against. All of your blocks go against that, and the milestone is what you report against with clients. So you say, we're doing this thing this week, so on and so forth. So I think that's a way, hopefully a way for you to sort of get that piece sorted. Anchor, assuming the development is the high value work that you do, that is what you're going to want the granularity at the weekly view, because if you get enough of those tied to the monthly view, you're going to start winning the quarter. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Cool. Great question, Glenn. Any other questions? Because Angela said you might have had a few.
No, that was the main one. I mean, I did put a bit of a sarcastic British comment that I'm really looking for the Outlook to become danger close as well, the Outlook integration.
Yeah,
because I'm one of those that I've never used Gmail, never have. I've always been an Outlook guy. So
as fast as we can get there. I think Microsoft is actually a little bit easier to code with than Apple is right now. But you would be able to tell me that.
I lose the will to live every Sunday night when I'm putting in my schedule for the following week into Momentum. Yeah.
All righty. Thanks so much, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
I'm seeing a lot of questions about app integration, and I'm wondering if you can mention the difference between how Momentum will help people work better with their apps rather than how we're going to make app integrate into every single app.
So I have a general question that's not going to be satisfying for a lot of folks, right? So we are looking at Zapier. right? Glenn put it in there, and thinking about the tools we're going to work with. So we do want two-way integration with Zapier for some of the major, especially team tools like ClickUp and Trello, Asana, some of our competitors, because we're not trying to do what they do. So that's going to be our primary way of getting data into and out of Momentum. Now, what we don't know is what it's going to look like to defer a whole list of projects that are two-way synced in Momentum, and what that's going to look like on ClickUp or Asana or things like that. So we really have to work on that, which is the unsatisfying part about how that's going to work. But what we're not planning on doing too much of, and I just want to be upfront about this, while we are playing with ways to create the Goldilocks amount of white space in Momentum for journaling on events and things like that, we're not trying to go the way of Notion. Notion does what it does really well, but Momentum is not trying to do that. What Momentum does, Notion does incredibly poorly, right? And so we're not trying to go the Notion route, and we're not trying to go the Asana route. Asana, ClickUp, so on and so forth. They got those things back. However, there are useful ways in which these things go back and forth, right? So if you're making, if you're completing tasks in Momentum, there's probably a way that that can be reported in Notion if that's what you wanted to do, right? So Zapier is going to be our primary tool. We've had people ask us, like, will you integrate with Todoist, and will you integrate with some of those? The more that it's like a to-do list, the more that you can anticipate that we're going to build a version of that within Momentum so that you don't have to integrate with something else, right? And so coming down the pipe pretty quickly is going to be a running to-do list that you don't have to use the Momentum planning process. You're just like, I just need to get these ideas out of my head today and run with them. You'll be able to do that, right? We don't need to integrate with Todoist when that's something that needs to be inside of Momentum itself. So that's primarily what we're thinking about, is like, what are these edges of Momentum where it keeps us on point, where it eliminates the unnecessary Frankenstack. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You got like 6 different tools stacked on top of each other, right? I think Momentum can eat 3, maybe 4 of them, but it can't eat all of them. Like, it can't eat what Asana does for you. Not going to be, right? So that's what we're looking at as far as integrations and how that's going to work. Calendar integrations, though, that's one of those, like, when we started this at the very beginning, I told our developers, like, that's table stakes for this type of app. We have to get that. And if we don't get that within probably the first year, we really need to, like, question our life decisions, because what are we doing with this type of app? So that's one. We know to-do lists are something that need to be native to Momentum. We know that some version of project planning needs to be native, like just sorting and dumping, like, needs to be native to Momentum. And we know that a little space to journal needs to be native to Momentum, but big space to journal, probably not going to go that direction. Juliana, does that roughly answer the question?
Does that roughly answer the question to everyone?
You posed a question that got me started. Y'all know that I have a tendency to answer one question, but like 4 others. And sometimes I forget which was the actual original question. I'm like the opposite of a politician. I answer all the things that I answer the question and other things, as opposed to just avoid the question.
Well, I'll share something with you here. I'm not sure if there is a question in there specifically, but something Pat shared is, I'd like an analysis that tells me which quarterly projects I'm putting off. So something like, you have 5 projects this quarter, and so far 90% of your monthly projects have been on projects 2 and 3, and 0% on 4. Or so far you've completed 90% of the weekly tasks you set up for 1, 2, and 3, but 2% of the tasks you set for 4. Sometimes that's right, because 4 doesn't really start until mid-quarter, but usually for me, it's that I'm avoiding actually doing any of the tasks I need to do.
Yeah.
Do you have any feedback for that, or?
That's exactly the type of learning that we want to bake into momentum, right? Because we really do want it to be that machine observer of what you're doing, not in a beat you up way, but just like, hey, noticing this. Like at a certain point, if you defer a project a few times, momentum is going to nudge you. It's like, hey, so you've nudged this thing 3 times. What's different this week? Right? What's different this time? Kind of at Team PF, we have the like 2 punt rule. Like you get to punt something twice, but at that 3rd time, it's a different conversation, right? Because it's not being prioritized in a way, and nothing's changing to keep it being prioritized. So either the task is not real, or the project is not really, really important, or something else is going on. So yeah, that's the type of thing we want to. So please do keep sending us. Here's what I would like momentum to tell me, because that helps us program what it is. We have ideas, but that's a great one. That's a beautiful one that I would love to see on that one. And I'm curious, who asked the question, Angela?
That was Pat.
Pat.
That was me.
And so how would you like momentum to nudge you about that?
For me, I tend to be kind of a numbers person. So I'd like some kind of display that says, okay, this month, here are your monthly projects and a percentage of tasks completed next to each of them, something like that. That would work. That would work for me. I don't know if it would work for other people.
Great. That's in line. We've kicked around the idea. This is on the possible board. So not on the, like some of these things you'll hear in my voice, like we're doing this. It's just a matter of time. And someone's like, oh, we're figuring it out. But Pat, something that we've been kicking around is having a visual meter about how much of that project is actually being completed. So like if you're
that would also be good, but it's a little different from what I'm, because some projects, they, like I said, they don't start until the middle of the quarter. And so it's going to be at 0% complete for the first half, but there's a reason for that. But sometimes it's at 0% complete because I really don't want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to, because there's a contract. And, so I need to know when I'm doing that kind of putting off.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious for Pat. So this helps me sort of think about this. In that scenario, is it normally that you just have the placeholder project of like, you need to do it this quarter and you haven't done any of the chunking for it? Or is it that you start chunking it in month 1, but keep putting it off? And that's what momentum needs to tell you.
Both of those things happen.
Okay. All right.
The stuff that is not going to get started until the middle of the quarter, I look at the initial project and I start chunking it and go, I'm not going to need this till the middle of the quarter. So, okay, I'll chunk that. I'll put that in the middle of month 2. And then I just don't have to think about it until then.
Yeah.
But there's other ones where it's like, I know I have a deadline. The deadline is in 3 months. It must be done by then. I need to start now. I start chunking it and the chunks just get put off and put off and put off because other things are, and then I end up doing it at the very last minute.
Got it. That's really helpful, Pat. By the way, the first way that you talked about did it is exactly how we would want you to do it on sort of in the momentum planning method. And so I think for the second use case, I think that's where having some punt notices and deferring notices are probably.
The idea of having the 2 punt rule is that resonates.
Good. Yeah. So 2 punt rule, like, and this is still playing in part, like, but at a certain point when you're able to share your momentum plans with people, like we can even bake in, like if you punt something twice, that one of your success pack gets notified about it. Right. Until you have that additional layer of accountability on it.
Yeah.
Some people just had a mini heart attack and some people said yes. Right. But yeah, that's how we're thinking about, like, how do we have this tool do that for you? But Pat, that's super useful. I think the 2 punt rule would be a great one to start getting our dev team to noodle on, so we can get it so that we can get that on the board sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks for telling us, and giving us some idea of what it would help or how it would help you and what it would look like for you. That's really helpful for us. I'm gonna get Kaylin next, and then I just wanted to call out both Karen and Betsy, just to make sure if either of you have questions as well, I want to make sure that we get you taken care of. We've noted down your feedback and everything, but I also want to make sure we get you taken care of if you have a specific question. So Kaylin, you're up.
Great, thanks. I have a related question to the previous point that I think might help illuminate this a little more. I use 3 different systems right now. I've got tasks in one, I've got my calendar in another, and then I use a Trello board for like the higher level strategic thinking, where I kind of stew the back burner. I've got a list for today, a list for this week, next week, this month, next month, and so on, so that I can sort of dynamically prioritize. These are the things over here, and I like being able to see those other options that aren't on my task list. And I'm wondering, is there a way that I can use momentum for 2 of these 3 methods, or hopefully all 3?
Yes. So I'm trying to think. There's a version of saying yes now versus yes in a couple months, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I think, what time horizon is your Trello board normally focused on?
It really, Charlie, it's the project level analysis that I lose if I'm in the task level, because the task just has all the stuff, whereas the Trello board is like the vague description of the project, and I can drag and drop and move it around and not get stuck in any details.
Okay. So the mental conversion is that what you're calling projects in Trello are probably week size and month size projects in Momentum. Right. And so that's where you can start to think about like, okay, because most of the things I'm imagining will take you multiple focus blocks, maybe multiple weeks to get done. Multiple focus blocks I would call a week size project, because you like anytime a project straddles over multiple days, I know to make that a week level project, right? Anytime a project straddles over multiple weeks, I know it's a month size projects, right? Month size project. So in your in Momentum, you could have over on the left side. So the way we think about Momentum is left side is your anchors and your constraints, right? The anchors being those projects, constraints being your schedule, right? Right side becomes your plan. Okay. So what I'm hearing is you're using Trello for your anchors and you're using tasks for your plan. Right. So you could hack current Momentum such that when it comes to your projects, you can move those around and sort of use a top-down vertical, like the thing that's up top is the most important, and then they're sort of stacked that way, and that can dynamically change. And you can defer things, so on and so forth, right? So that would be how I would be thinking about that if you wanted to use Momentum right now. The other way that you can think about it is you can use Trello right now to click up, no pun intended for the actual tool, but to have one level higher, but then use Momentum to be, so you have a particular goal that has different projects attached to it. You might switch goals and priorities around, and that will switch your projects around. Momentum can cover the project side of things so that like as those change, you can defer, you can archive, you can do different things like that. And it lets Trello be one stage more strategic and not be sort of a project management board, but sort of a priority board at the same time. Sometimes that doesn't work. Going forward, as we get more of the right Goldilocks freeform space, we want Momentum to be able to do that for you, right? And so there's easy deferring, easy archiving that I think if you haven't tried it much, Kaylin, to look at it, because when you archive something, you can resurrect it pretty quickly. So you could play like that thing is like tertiary priority. I don't want to lose everything I've got about it, but I don't want it in my face. Okay, that could be archived. And then as you're going through the process of looking in your archive, you're like, oh, that one's relevant now. I can resurrect it and put it where I want it to go. And then it's just going to, roll out that way. So that's a great question, though. That's a great use case. And eventually, Momentum will eat all 3. We're just not there 6 months or 4 months into it, depending upon how you count.
Yeah. Got
Is
it.
that
So
helpful, or does that give an idea
it
for
is.
ways to think
Well,
about
I
it?
guess my follow-up question is there just one archive for everything that's not in my face? Or
Mhm.
is there a way to like stage the archives so that things are in holding? I know I'm going to do this year, and so I need to keep reviewing it, but I don't have to go through the entire archive to see these things.
So archive in our language is your parking lot, right? And so right now it's one parking lot, and that's mostly because I've found with my clients and customers that the more parking lots we have, the more likely we're unlikely to actually look at them, and we end up holding them in our brains and not in the parking lot, right? And so right now, and I see that archive might not be the most intuitive word right now, so I get that, but it's either think of our archive as a parking lot. There's currently not multiple parking lots, just like there's not a clear separation between a work project and a personal project. Same basic principle of when you're looking at your time, energy, and available, or time, energy, and attention available, don't over fracture that, because you're going to lie to yourself. When you're looking at your parking lots, don't over fraction that, because you're going to miss out on everything else. So
That's helpful. Thanks.
that's good feedback. Well, I'll definitely mull over it again. I'm opinionated in the sense of where it's like, here's why we do things, and I'm also really careful to be like, you know what, but that's might not be wrong, and that might not be useful, and that might not be what most serves people. And if we turn out that we need to have multiple parking lots, like some point in the near future, we're going to have tags in Momentum, and so I think tags would do some of that work without creating another set of hierarchy.
For sure. Yeah, because then I could tag things for this quarter, next year.
Yeah.
And then just do a tag search and see everything in the view that I want.
Yeah. So that's likely how we will solve that sorting, so that we don't create yet another layer.
Yeah, I like
Cool.
it.
Thanks, Kayla.
Great, thanks.
Great question. Thank you. All right. So I have one more question right now, and we're actually just 1 minute until our time is up. So just want to acknowledge that we're very close to time. But if there are other questions after this last one, please know that, reach out to Mariah and we will get you taken care of. So Charlie, this is one that a couple of people are actually curious about in different ways. So Karen said, I've been deferring projects from week to week and month to month to avoid retyping, which means not assigning chunks to projects. I don't have more than 5 projects listed, so it's not too hard to tell apart. Is there a more efficient way that does not require a lot of retyping?
It sounds like she may be using deferring in the way that she can use archiving, right? If it's a true, I thought I was going to be able to do it this week, I see that I'm not going to be able to do it next week, but I wanted to have it happen next week, that's a deferral. I saw that I wanted to do it this month. I see that I wanted to do it this month. I know that I'm not going to be able to do it next month. That's a deferral. I don't want to retype, but I want to keep the project. I want to sort of keep that. That's more of an archive thing, because you can always go back and then go from there. But she said, no, I'm not. That's what she said.
I'm doing parts of the project every week. I don't want to type in the details every week.
Okay. I think this is a recurring task or recurring actionable thing.
That's what it sounds like,
Okay.
which we have coming. Well, I'll let you say that.
Okay, so we have recurring events and recurring actionables coming really, really soon, y'all. So I think that's actually what's going on, Karen, is that you're using deferring as a current hack you're using deferring to recur a task and just not have to type it. So I think once we have recurring task in there, like, you won't have to do that process anymore.
Hope that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I know it seems backwards that we're focusing on, it can seem backwards that we're focusing on calendar integration before recurring task, but I know when we introduce calendar integration and the way people use their calendars, it's going to break any of the recurring tasks that they have. And so we just kind of want to think like, what's it going to look like? Let's get that feedback and then let's build in recurring tasks. Either way, I think we're talking in the next 6 weeks or so. Steve's going to punch me in the mouth for wanting to say that. But it's really, really close. And again, that's recurring task. It's kind of like calendar sort of stuff. It's table stakes. We know we got to get it in there. And if you ever see us be slow on something like that, we know that recurring task, we know this function needs to be in momentum, but it's how do we program in this expectation, this sort of feature that we need, without creating the same patterns and bad habits that we see with other instantiations of that same function or feature somewhere else. Because let's be real, how many recurring tasks do we have and reminders that we have that we either don't pay attention to in their noise, or we just continue to punt along, so on and so forth. So we're trying not to design the tool so that it like sets us off making bad expectations with ourselves, when like we can be a little bit more intentional. And some of you are like, Charlie, you're making this harder than it needs to be, but welcome to being Charlie.
Peek inside your brain. All right. Okay, this I want to really acknowledge and try to stay within our time limits the best we can today. This has been really fun. I'm glad to have had the chance to see some of you and that we were able to answer some questions and get the chance to talk to you a little bit about how and why this came about and some of our opinions and methodologies. Please do continue to send us feedback, comments, tell us what you're wanting or needing. The things you are sharing are helping us, and we're going to continue developing this in a way that is supporting you all. So it really is good for us to hear from you all about what's working and what you would like to see still yet. Let's see, what else can I share with you? Yeah, so the GCal integration, literally any moment now. And then we'll continue to work on those others, and obviously the recurring will be very helpful for many of you as well. This was recorded, so we will send out a message letting folks know when it is available if you would like to go back to it. And just a reminder that, once again, Mariah, always happy to answer the questions and hear the feedback and whatnot. Charlie, anything you would like to say here to close us out?
Yeah, I just typed it in, but I just wanted to say that we are also working on our communication cadences, such that you don't have to go to the website and just hope that things found out, or you don't have some surprise feature hit you in your app. So we're working on that too. You'll see a lot of progress on that in July and in August. So that's one piece there. We are more serious than you know about building momentum with you. And so every meeting you show up like this, every webinar you show up and you give us ideas and you say, hey, I want this, so on and so forth. We listen, we go back and say, how are we going to make that work? And so as much as we're excited about momentum, and it's very much our, I hate using, well, I'm not going to use it right now. It's very much, it's like what we're working on and excited about. We also consider it to be yours as well. So this is, when I talked to the developers about this way back in December or January, I was like, look, I want you to think about this more like a community garden that we're the stewards for, right? We are going to put some things out there and talk to our community and see if they like it. And not everything we put out is going to work, right? But we want to be in that type of relationship. So we need to build an agile development process. So that's what it is. We're not going to stew for 6 months, produce a thing and call it done in the steamroll over. So please continue to talk to us. Something's not working for you, let us know. If you've got an idea, we might, with your permission, run with it, appropriate and put it in the app, because we're really building the app to help you do your best work. And we are not going to get it right by ourselves. And we do not want to do this by ourselves. So thanks so much for showing up. We're going to be thinking about when we want to do more of these like town hall things and what the right cadence is over the next, little period of time. So this will not be the last time we'll have this type of scenario or this type of conversation, and we look forward to the next one.
We don't have something on the schedule yet, but as Charlie mentioned, we will be doing more of these, especially as momentum continues to change and we get more features and more users and whatnot. So there will definitely be more time for us together like this for you all to ask questions and learn more about momentum and get some hands-on help as well. All right, everyone. Thank you so much again for being here. And if, as always, if momentum is helping and supporting you and you'd like to share it with folks, we are always happy to have your friends join us as well. So thank you again for all of your support, and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, y'all.